Now, one of President Obama's first big forays onto the world stage, around the same time that he bowed to the King of Saudi Arabia, was his now infamous Cairo speech in June 2009. Now, the president took the stage at Egypt's Al-Azhar University, which is notorious for its anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and he promised a new day for America and the Muslim world. Now, a lot of things jumped out at me during that speech, including the president's view that those pesky Jews were in Israel only because of the Holocaust, and not because Israel is the ancient homeland of the Jewish people. But here's another thing he said in Cairo that really floored me.
And I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear.
Really? So let me get this straight. It's now one of the solemn duties of the American president to defend against stereotypes of Islam? I'm sure this is what the founding fathers had in mind. At any rate, President Obama has kept to his word time and time again. When it comes to the religious freedom of Catholics, oh well. But religious freedom for Muslims, now you're talking. When the president endorsed the Ground Zero mega mosque, he clearly framed it as a religious freedom issue. He said that Muslims have the right to build a mosque wherever they like, and that includes a victory arch at Ground Zero, where, yes, 3,000 Americans were massacred in the name of Islam. Newsflash, Mr. President, no one is infringing on the religious freedom of Muslims in this country. In the year 2001, there were 1,200 mosques in America. By 2011, just 10 years later, that number nearly doubled to over 2,000 mosques. That's astounding. We have Muslim congressmen, Muslim teachers, Muslim schools, and tens of thousands of Muslim immigrants entering the U.S. each year. Now, that's freedom. In my opinion, since we're locked in a struggle with Islamic jihadists right now, that's probably a bit too much freedom. But in President Obama's eyes, and in the eyes of Eric Holder and others in this administration, Muslims are the perpetual victims of bigoted right-wing Islamophobes. And since the president is a warrior not just for the middle class, but for religious freedom, he's going to put an end to this nativist stuff once and for all. But you know the really interesting thing here? The FBI's hate crime statistics year after year show that the most persecuted and harassed religious group in the United States is the Jews. Anti-Semitic violence continues to soar, while anti-Muslim hatred has stayed at basically the same low level in America since 9/11. FBI statistics clearly show this. So why doesn't President Obama speak out about it? After all, Jews are the most persecuted people in the history of the planet, often at the hands of Muslims. And what about Christian persecution in the Middle East, the cradle of Christianity? Christians are fleeing countries like Iraq, Lebanon, and Egypt in droves. They're being beaten, murdered, jailed. Their churches and homes are being burnt to the ground. It's gotten to the point where some are saying Christianity will no longer exist in the Middle East in a few years. Where is the Obama administration on this? I'll give you an idea. In October, as Coptic Christians were being slaughtered in the streets by the Egyptian military and Islamic radicals, the White House released a statement calling for, quote, restraint on all sides. All sides? So the Christians should have restrained themselves as they were being mowed down by tanks in the streets. Look, the left doesn't care about Christian or Jewish persecution. Oh, they'll use Christian talk when it's convenient, like when President Obama declared recently that Jesus would support wealth redistribution.
I think to myself, if I'm willing to give something up as somebody who's been extraordinarily blessed and give up some of the tax breaks that I enjoy, I actually think that's going to make economic sense. But for me as a Christian, it also coincides with Jesus' teaching that for unto whom much is given, much shall be required.
Bottom line, protecting Christianity and speaking up for beleaguered Jews here and in Israel doesn't advance the cause of the left, which is to tear down every last vestige of Judeo-Christian Western society and create a post-religious utopia of equality, harmony, and social justice. So why would anyone think that President Obama would give a rip about what the Catholic Church thinks? This is the very kind of institution that he wants to confront, that he wants to upset, and that he wants to marginalize. Catholics, you will provide abortion pills in direct violation of your religious beliefs, and you will counsel people on having abortions. I'm sorry, Catholics, but you must put away these archaic, outdated beliefs for the advancement of all mankind and the global greater good. We are creating heaven on earth, and you are standing in the way. You know, it's interesting how it's all worked out. First, they came for the Jews. They always do, attacking Israel viciously. Now they've come for the Catholics. Then it's the evangelicals, and if Mitt Romney wins the GOP nomination, they'll come for the Mormons too. But will this administration ever ask Muslims to compromise their values and deeply held doctrinal beliefs? Of course not. Because for the left, Islam is an ally to be embraced and used. It is not of the Jerusalem, Athens, Rome lineage that laid the groundwork for Western civilization. And it does not subscribe to those troublesome 10 commandments that the left wants to erase from every courthouse, schoolroom, and bingo hall in America. The Muslim Brotherhood and its ilk share the left's complete disdain for traditional America. It's a match made in hell, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to a moment of serious reckoning. Your faith is about to be tested in profound ways. It's going to start in the Middle East. War is coming, and events are going to unfold there very soon that will make you forget all about the economy and the debt. Trust me. I've talked to Israeli officials on and off the record for the past 7 years, and I believe Israel will strike Iran's nuclear facilities. They have no choice. They are backed against the wall with an existential threat gathering. Sanctions will not stop Iran. And Israel has a history of preemptively taking out existential threats. Whether it was the Six-Day War, the Iraqi nuclear reactor in 1981, or the Syrian reactor in 2007. And a nuclear Iran is a greater threat than any of those. And if I was a betting man, I would say that Israel will strike before the U.S. election in November. What we're seeing now, the van explosions, the assassinations, the Iranian threats to attack on U.S. soil. These are all birth pangs. It's coming, and it's going to get ugly. Yes, gas and oil prices will rise. There will be Iranian retaliation. In fact, the Iranians may not wait for Israel to strike first. They could kick this thing off by starting a proxy war on Israel's borders through Hezbollah and Hamas. The time of reckoning is here. So where will the left stand? We know where. With Israel's enemies. Because Israel will dare to defend itself against annihilation. We'll see violent fury in Europe, and yes, even here in the U.S., against not just Israel, but the Jewish people in general.